we can pick one comic to talk about here.
Okay.
So do you all want to go at once? Or we do it one by one?
We try, okay? Yeah.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. We've picked our comics and we're gonna start off this episode. So hi, my name is Viency. I'm the host for Red Dot Comics Den. This is our very first episode and we're here. Yay! And we're here together with the COMIX.SG team to talk a little bit about local comics here in Singapore, and it's gonna be a real chill session. So we're just gonna talk a little bit about like kind of our backgrounds, sort of we really get to know each other, and for you kind of like to get to know us as well, and you know, kind of like just to kickstart the podcast, you know, for our very first episode. So maybe we can start off with a bit of introductions first. So maybe we can start off from here. So Nadrah, do you want to start off first?
Well, okay then. So my name is Nadrah in Chye. I'm also the intern of COMIX.SG. Outside of work, I also draw comics myself, and currently I'm doing like my own horror comic called Trust This Training Program. So currently I'm doing chapter 3 and hopefully will be out by next year, late next year. And well, I'm happy to be here with everyone else, and right now I'm currently doing for the COMIX.SG anthology. So I'm hoping that it might inspire other inspiring comic artists to join the fun as well. Okay, so
yeah, we'll definitely be talking a little bit more about that later during the episode. Yeah, maybe next, Lingying, you want to talk a little bit?
So, yeah, hi everyone, I'm Lingying. I'm the manager of Asia Pac Books, and also COMIX.SG is one of the side projects of Asia Pac Books. It was started by me and our colleague Clement, and Nadrah just joined us, as well as Wing and Viency. They're also part of the bigger team. COMIX.SG, maybe I can just give a quick shout out. It's right here, but it's an online directory for comic artists in Singapore, and our hope is that it can become the home for comics in Singapore online. So we have a Discord community, which Nadrah has been spending a lot of time and energy to update and, you know, put in all the bots and everything. We also have a mentorship program coming soon, and we have an Instagram channel that just started. So it's quite fresh. A lot of things are going on, and we hope that people will, you know, check out our pages, check out our channels, and give us a follow or subscribe. Yeah.
Wing, do you want to also sort of introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi guys, my name is Wing. I'm currently an intern at Asia Pac Books. Yeah. So I'm currently a art student. I'm studying in NTU Art Design and Media. Yeah, and yeah, on my free time I just like read comics. I've been reading comics since like when I was like very young. Yeah. So local comics, Western comics, manga, yeah. And yeah, currently working on just like my own hobby. I do like art on the side on my own art account, which is
He's also a comic artist.
like in a way, like not really but I just like to do like character design, and like yeah, like you guys can check me out on Auntie Wings on Instagram. Yeah, I do a little bit of comics and other stuff also. So yeah, that's basically it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I guess for me, I'm an editor at Asia Pac Books, so I worked on like some of the comics that are on this table right here. So for me, I think my experience with comics, I have to be honest, right? Most of my experience with comics, I think started is more like in like international comics, like Western comics, you know, manga. I think that's where a lot of people sort of begin. So my foray into local comics properly is definitely in like sort of like the last few years, right? Like where I really sort of kind of get to know Singapore comics. I think when I was a kid, I did read like local comics. Like I read a lot of Asia Pac Books comics. I think that's part of why that I was like so drawn to like working here, partially because like when I was like a kid, that was just sort of what I did. Like I stand at Popular, you know, that was basically where my parents just left me there to read while they're off to head off on their chores, and then I'm just like, that's my childcare center.
Great parents.
I mean,
No, actually,
they're
the
letting.
best place to put your kids.
No, you should totally leave your kids at a bookstore. If like you know, if your kid likes reading and then they
Yeah.
want to be left at the library and the bookstore, then by all means, right? So it's pretty cool. Yeah, and I think, but ever since like I read a lot of like local comic books when I was young, so Asia Pac and like things like Mr. Kiasu. But that was like a long time ago, and this sort of like in the middle, you start to like once you hit your teenage years, you start thinking like, oh, manga is so cool, or like DC Comics, Marvel Comics, right? And then you just kind of like, that has been at the forefront for me. And then after coming back to Asia Pac Books, that's when I started like looking at local comics again. So I'm kind of like super curious for you guys, like what is your sort of like your personal journey with comics? I know Wing sort of mentioned that you've always been like a comics sort of lover and reader. Like yeah, so what about you and like Nadrah, Lingying, like what about you guys?
I go first. Okay, so back then when I was in primary school, there this lesson where we go to the library to borrow books. I believe it's to encourage students to read books. So every time I go there, I always borrow comic books, no matter what. Even though there's no new comic books, I still keep borrowing the same thing. And you let the teacher to notice it, and then she's like, Nadrah, you shouldn't like borrow any more comic books. It won't improve your English. And guess what, teacher? I still pass my English.
There's English.
Yeah.
There's still English in comic books also.
Yeah, that's I think all our experience.
Yeah. And then it grew into like I want to make my own comic book since then. So I'm really glad to continue this path. Right? Yeah. So what about you, Ling?
Yeah, I think my experience with comics in Singapore is a bit unique because my mom was a publisher. She's the publisher of Asia Pac Books. Hi, mom. Yeah. So
Shout out
yeah,
to Madam
I
Lim.
mean, like when I was a kid, my mom would be working at the book fairs, so we'll go to the book fairs, and then I would see all the comic artists doing their events, like Mr. Kiasu, and his team.
It's pretty iconic.
Yeah, Wee Tian Bing, and all the Asia Pac artists, of course. So I'm very used to it. I'm just like, oh, okay, like if there's any comic books around me, most of them are drawn by Singaporean artists. I actually didn't read manga or DC Comics growing up. I just read, I was drip fed Asia Pac Books non-stop my entire life. So that was my main experience, and then also seeing a lot of other comic books. Cause like my mom, she didn't just publish books, but she also just support and buy everybody else's books also. So I kind of had like a constant feed of Bookworm Gang, like Mr. Kiasu, and even a slightly more kind of like weird things as well. Like when I was getting a bit older, like she came home with Resident Tourist. Like
Is it that one?
House of Lim. So she
House of
kind of
Lim.
supports local comic artists a lot. So the books are always in the house. So for me, I'm very familiar with a lot of local comic artists. And then of course, when I started publishing, when I joined publishing full time a few years ago, then I got to meet a lot of artists. Cause I was very thick-skinned, and then I'm going to ask people for advice and stuff like that. So I got to know a lot of the different artists, like Hong Ting, Sunny, of course, like the ones Asia Pac publisher, Zaki. So I consider them my friends lah. So that's where I am with local comics. I don't really draw, I don't really write, but I'm just kind of like, part of the community, and I enjoy that very much.
Yeah. I feel like once you really like get to know the local community, you realize there's actually like a lot of richness and a lot of depth to the kind of stories that you want to tell. Like, I think if you don't pay attention, and I think it's easy to not pay attention because, like I was saying, like, oh, like manga, it feels like manga and Western comics are so like, wow, bright and shiny, right? Like we've always sort of like looked outside of Singapore, but there's actually a lot going on in Singapore here as well. And I think that's part of like our project and for COMIX.SG, and also like part of this podcast is really just to kind of like talk about what Singapore like has to offer, and like the kind of creatives it has to offer, and also really just showcase like the kind of love and appreciation that we do have for comics as well, and bring like both comic creators and people who love comics like together and so we can all sort of talk about it together, have that space, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think comic artists are always, as in all of us are readers first and foremost.
Mhm.
You don't start drawing or writing comics unless you have read a lot in your time. So I think we all share that enthusiasm.
Like
lah.
that-
So that's
that
what brings us
inspire-
together.
Yeah.
Mm.
Did you like Wing? Did you have like any sort of like standout like local comics for you in your childhood or something like that? Because I know Lingying mentioned a few.
I mean,
Yeah.
this one is
Oh, this
definitely
one?
my.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
This one I started with.
You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, this one is 天界无限 by
Mhm.
Mr. Wee Tian Bing. It's like a
Mhm.
local comic book artist.
Celestial Zone.
Yeah.
Celestial-
Celestial Zone,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've started reading, I think one of his most like popular comic series. I think it started off with like some of Jin Yong's books first. Like he adapted like novels into comics. Then I think the one that I read most was Return of the Condor Heroes.
Oh.
Yeah, that
Let
one
me
was
show the camera.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, so I started reading like
Mhm.
Return of Condor Heroes most. Yeah.
with like
Yeah.
the yeah.
Yeah, and his artwork is just like
Mhm.
it's insane. Like it's super detailed.
Mhm.
And I think one thing I like about his works is there's a lot of like action and
Ooh.
fight choreography.
Yes,
also.
like
Yeah.
his action scenes are always really, really
Mm.
cool and well choreographed.
and
Mm.
wow, the way I mean you've edited Return of Condor Heroes. I
Yeah.
think you've seen some of
Yeah.
the panels.
the new one, the collectors,
It's
it's
insane.
really, really good. Because like now that we've been able to compact it all together into like it's like 6 books now, right? So you really get to see just like everything and how rich like the kind of world that he built. But yeah,
Other books.
Celestial
Yeah,
Celestial Zone, yeah.
Yeah, so this one he worked on after
Mhm.
Return of Condor Heroes, and this one is also. I mean, like this. I think one thing that Wee Tian Bing sort of like exposed me to was like wuxia comics.
Mm.
Yeah, so like a lot of like action, a lot of like. I think it also ties back to like Chinese culture, also a lot of it. Yeah, so that's kind of like how I started reading comics. I mean, I also read like Western comics also lah, but this one really got me to be. This was like the first book that kind of like got me exposed to the local comics. Yeah.
Mm.
Do you still read like this kind of like wuxia sort of actions comics?
Honestly,
nowadays?
he's the only one. Yeah, like 神雕侠侣 and 天界无限 like these two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, iconic.
Yeah, like he's definitely sort of like one of those like pioneer
Yeah.
like comic creators in Singapore that really like it was so popular when Return of Condor Heroes came out. And I think Celestial Zone came out when he already sort of started on his own, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
like-
that was right after he finished wrapped up Condor Heroes. So should we talk about the books that we picked up?
Yeah,
Sure.
definitely. Maybe you
Okay.
Lingying, you can start off since we started with Wing.
yeah, thanks Wing for
Yeah.
Like-
Starting us off.
for starting and like what you said is really nice. Okay, so I picked up the Art of Charlie Chan Hock Chye. Obviously Asia Pac Books comics are like they're like my babies and I love all of them very much and equally much. Yeah, so it's very hard for me to choose a favorite. That's why I picked up the Art of Charlie Chan Hock Chye. Okay, so I mean this is just a bit hard to describe lah. But for me, before I started publishing, I read this and I think it's one of the books that kind of make me feel like, is this okay? What do you want? Like, yeah. So the Art of Charlie Chan Hock Chye, I read it when I was still when I was in my previous career, and it's very important to me in the sense that it was one of the first like kind of very heavy or like thick graphic novels that I had read, which was produced in Singapore, and the topic is a lot to do with local history and local politics, which is something I care about a lot. And then he also combined that together with the life of a comic artist, which is also another thing that I relate to a lot because like say like I saw my mom publishing comic books from a very young age, and of course like like talking about political history in Singapore, like my mom, my grandfather, like they were all politically involved. So I feel a lot for the history that he talks about in this book. So yeah, it really I still recommend it to like all my friends nowadays. Like between me and my mom, we bought many copies of the book to like give away to our friends. Like we really believe that it's a very important work of literature. And yeah, like I'm very shocked that there are people who haven't read it yet. I'm just like, please, like just read it lah. I feel like it's very ambitious. It's very ambitious. It goes way beyond like say like a single volume. kind of book, even beyond like a one-shot graphic novel. There's like oil paintings and stuff inside. So artistically, it's really
He
interesting.
does vary up like his style a lot depending on what he's trying to sort of like achieve, and I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah. And the visual storytelling is interesting lah. It's not linear. Yeah. So if you're someone who's interested in like visual storytelling as a creator, there's quite a lot in here that you can kind of like study and think about also. Yeah.
It's definitely like I'm also very happy to see that like it's constantly being republished again and again. I think I bought like a hard copy, like there was like a republished like hardcover version of it. Yeah, and I don't remember when it came out. I think it was like a few years ago.
Every year.
But like I saw it and I was like, I think before that I haven't had the chance to sort of like get a copy. So I really like hardcover. I just like sort of snapped it up. Yeah, it's really cool.
I think it's in the
I
fourth or
bought it
fifth
for
edition.
Christmas or something. There was like a Christmas sale at Epigram, and then I felt like I had to buy something because I was at the store, and then I saw it there, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna get it. I'm gonna spoil myself.
Yeah. Then you should read it. You should finish it.
I should finish it. Yeah, I'm like about halfway through. I'm definitely gonna finish it.
Yeah, we can
at
talk
some
about
point.
it when you finish.
Yeah,
Right.
maybe Nadrah, you can talk about.
Yeah.
your
Alright,
comic.
so this is the comic I picked, the Ollie Comics, Diary of a First Time Dad.
Oh, Drewski.
Yeah, honestly,
yes.
I like the art because normally I do like very detailed art and I took hours, probably a day to finish one panel. Then when I look at this, I'm like, okay, we can also make stories out of simple sketches and drawings, and probably I should also like look up to him because it teaches me that I can just take it slow, take it easy while I do comicking. Yeah, so this is what I personally like. I had a good laugh at while reading one of it because I know a father who doesn't know how to parent his 3 daughters, but that's okay. We still love him. Yeah,
That's your dad.
yeah, my dad.
Oh, so it reminded you of your dad.
Reminds me of my dad, because my dad also has
Very
made
relatable.
mistakes. Yeah, very relatable. And it's like Singapore context too. So I believe there's like PSLE O level. He always goes through with us, like having a mental breakdown, something like that. He'll be there to like give us emotional support. Even if it's not like 100% guaranteed that it works, but we appreciate the effort. So
It's like thanks, Dad. And
Yeah, say thanks,
at least
Dad.
you're here.
yes, thank you. Alright, yeah, so this is the comic I picked out.
Yeah, so this is
Yeah.
Sacred Guardians.
Oh,
So this is published by Asia Pac Books, and like part of I'm bringing it up not just because it's part of Asia Pac Books, but one thing I do really enjoy is that there is space for creating our own kinds of fiction based on our own kind of mythology and our history, and I think that like we can have our own kinds of fantasy, and we don't necessarily have to look towards like the kind of things that we are very used to, your like typical like Tolkien-esque elves, your Western fantasy, which is they are great as well, but there is space for a lot of sort of rich kind of diverse stories. And now that we have more space on both online and in physical books like this, right, then we kind of get more chance to highlight our own like sort of local culture that has sort of been like not the more underground, maybe not spotlighted. And I think like it's great that we finally can spotlight our own sort of stories and histories and cultures. So it's something that I really enjoyed for this particular comic, is like the creativity in the kind of like world that we can build off our own cultures.
Yeah.
So this is something that I definitely really enjoyed, and I also thought that it was really fresh to see as well. Yeah, because we have a lot of comics here that is very inspired by local sort of. There's a bit of an autobiographical element, right? Like sort of like NG's comics, for example, that you were mentioning. There's a lot of older comics here that is like based off sort of your own personal stories, but this is purely fiction. So that is something that I really enjoyed personally. which is why I wanted to bring up
Yeah,
print
of, like,
books.
print
Print books are
like,
great
yeah,
though.
they are
It
great.
is
And,
great
like,
to flip through.
it's always interesting, like you see like how comics are evolved like
Mm.
over the years. Now it's like digital, then there's like audio dramas. Then actually like Celestial Zone, like Tianbing has like Celestial Zone 21. Then they're actually getting a director to make it into a TV series. Yeah, like a 20+ episode TV series. And it's really cool like to see like local stuff like being like not just comics itself, like they get expanded into like different other stuff
Yes.
also. And now with like Instagram, I think it's great. Like hopefully like like stuff like barriers of entry like it makes it easier for people to
Totally.
to come in and create their own content.
Yeah.
Yeah, so hopes for the future. Maybe for those people who are like a bit afraid to take that step, maybe it's like it doesn't even need to be like drastic. Maybe you can just post an art online on Instagram. Then you see like how it goes. I think that can be like quite liberating also. Like they don't need to be like be so scared of like thinking like what if like people don't like this or whatever. Yeah, hopefully that's like a small step that they can take. Then maybe from there like they can take more and more steps. Yeah, so
totally.
yeah, hopefully people will be less afraid to put out their own art.
Yeah, it can feel quite daunting, I think.
Yeah, I think you
Yeah.
can. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so for me, what I hope for the future is that, well, I want a community where people can get things across. Example, like if you have a comic that you already published and you want to spread the word, you can easily spread it to a community rather than having to work so hard to actually
Promote it.
promote it to like strangers in Singapore and hoping that they will get a copy, because that is honestly, as a comic artist myself, it's hard to do marketing, especially
It is.
so I'm hoping that in the future we can like band together and actually make dreams come true for like veterans, established comic artists, or even like aspiring comic artists. So I think it's a community that is great for everyone who is interested in comic, or even like as a reader or as a comic creator.
I think like as long as you love comics in any way, shape or form, then I think naturally you're already part of the comics community. And I feel like, I think part of like, because I mentioned I think at the start of sort of like the video where I've like not encountered local comics a lot, so it's only been very recent, right, that I've sort of really got into local comics. And I think there are also moments where you could possibly feel like you don't actually know enough about like what's going on. Like for example, like Lingying has like basically her whole childhood lifetime
and my friends.
just sort of like being part of like the local comics community and reading local comics. But there's always, you can sort of like, I think the important thing of having community is that it's always okay for you to step in at any time with completely you don't even necessarily need to really have read a lot of local comics. Maybe you, like me, you could have just kept a lot of your attention like sort of like in a lot of overseas comics, and then you feel like you want to see something new or you want to see what's going on here, you can definitely also do that. And I think and
that's what this podcast is about.
Yeah.
Kind of, I feel.
I feel like even as we're talking here, I'm like learning a lot as well about like to say like the history of comics that Lingying has sort of like lived through in a way, and it's something that not all of us would necessarily be familiar with. So it's about learning and from each other and like this kind of community sharing, which I think is really fun.
And I think that's an awesome like basis for like us starting this podcast. I mean, we don't need to know everything. And like say I'm a little bit more immersed in it, but I don't actually know. I'm also like very very left out of a lot of fandoms and artist circles.
I think it's impossible to know what is going on everywhere.
But
like,
I think let's try to we can just explore together. I guess.
It's part of like learning, growing together, seeing what's going on. I think in the local like comic scene. Just like we might not know everything as well, so I think like it's really part of just discovering finding things out. And I think like because Comics.SG is so new, we might constantly, there'll constantly be new like comic creators that we are encountering that we might not have met before.
Yeah.
So yeah, so they might appear on like a future episode. Maybe you can bring on some of these like new comic creators. Yeah.
So what else is next for? Let's talk about the like what else do you think so what's next for the Red Dot Comics then?
We actually, for this Red Dot Comics then, we're gonna start off with 6 episodes and hopefully more if you guys are interested. So do support, do kind of like let us know on Instagram and Discord, feedback to us about how the podcast is going. And we're gonna have like 6 episodes where we're gonna talk about different topics for each one. And we might we've sort of mentioned there's like a mentorship program, so we might also bring on some of our mentors to talk to you guys about their journey with comics. And a lot of this is still in the works, so we're definitely still looking towards also your feedback as well, because actually starting next episode, we're hoping to do this thing where we'll be taking questions from you guys. So if you have any burning questions, you can totally reach out to us on our Instagram and on our Discord. So you can check us out there. That's where we'll be taking all our questions. So if you have anything you feel like you want to ask about local comics, maybe after watching this episode, you feel like, there's this thing I want to know about. Is there someone you want to see? Is there like a creator that you feel like you want us to feature or discuss? Simply let us know, and then maybe, who knows, we might be able to bring them on or not. Yeah. So this is all definitely still a very kind of like like a spontaneous thing. Like we're really definitely it's about the journey, like it's about works in progress, really.
Yeah.
So
But
we are on this journey, and we are also
together.
on this journey with you guys.
Yeah.
So I think that's all for our podcast first episode today. I think that's where we will end it here. So thank you guys for tuning into the first episode, and if you stayed all the way, thank you so much. We will see you guys next time. Bye bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.